Yeah, so there's a question about how we identify you on the MP. It's a good question. So the way that we identify you is entirely through the contents of this file. So you go to the MP page. I can sort of demo this. I go to the page for the MP, and you'll see at some point there is this, and this is going to look different for you, so don't use mine. And I'm actually using the wrong one because I'm using a local copy. So you take this value, you come over here, you paste that in, you're done. That's how you identify yourself. Your GitHub user ID is not used as part of the process. So yeah, no, this value links your account with the MP, and that's how we'll identify you when we grade it. So when we grade it, we'll grab the contents of this file. We have this information in a database. We'll pull it up, and we'll use that to figure out who you are. So there's no need to and I'm gonna get rid of this because I don't want people to accidentally use my ID. So every one of you. So the regular help site is available. The forum is available. Those are great ways. The help site definitely. We are also going to set up some new sessions for MP review. So we'll get those started hopefully within a couple of days. We'll have, and on the days that we don't have a lesson like today, you should also feel free to go to one of the existing sessions and ask questions about the MP there. Normally, we still want to kind of reserve. We are going to continue to do homework, and there's more content that we're talking about. We're not just doing MP full stop for the rest of the semester, but we do have time set aside for that. So absolutely, we'll have some, and we'll get those on the calendar for later this week. We're working on that right now. So good question. But the help site during normal help site hours always available for help with the MP. So just put down that's what you need help with, and the staff will be able to help you with the MP as well. Absolutely. Questions about getting started. It looks like there's some issues with sort of proxy settings, particularly I think if you're overseas. So I think we'll be able to help you get those sorted out. Any questions on the overall structure, sort of your objectives for this particular checkpoint, anything like that? This is one of the ways that you can get help on the MP, right? You can come and ask me. So I'm here at least for the better part of an hour, and happy to talk about how the MP works. We can look at some of the code together if there's parts of it. I expect that there are certainly parts of this that you're going to find confusing. That's part of working with an existing code base. So anytime one of the new skills and abilities that we expect the MP to help you develop is this idea of being able to work with code that you didn't write, and that's a big part of software development. So when you typically take classes at a university and you take classes in this department going forward, the normal thing is for each project for you to start over, right? To start from scratch, to start from nothing, or to start with a very small amount of code that might have been provided by the course staff. That's, in the real world of software development, that's really weird. That's not how things work. The number of times that a project actually starts from a blank slate is pretty small. So it's much more common. And this is true kind of regardless of how you do things, right? Even when you start your own independent project, it's more common to have, if you went through the process, so we could do this if you guys want. If you go through the process in Android Studio of creating a new project, it already sets you up with quite a few files that are there that you have to then kind of sit down and figure out, like, what does this do and what parts do I edit and stuff like that. So getting comfortable with working with code that you didn't write is a part of what we're teaching you with the machine project. So don't, if you feel like, this is a little, let's see here. Yeah, this is a great question for the forum about the proxy. I think somebody was able to solve this earlier. I think there was already a question on this on the forum, so you might want to search for that. So when your MP starts up, there are files that it needs to download in order to set up your development environment. If it can't access those files for some reason, then you may need to work on the connection settings. And I think this might be particularly true for people that are overseas. So I think there's a big enough community of people that are having this, that will have this type of challenge that we should be able to get it figured out. But I don't know exactly what the specific settings are. The MP due date's on there, I'm pretty sure, right at the top. So reading the MP is kind of an important part of the project. We didn't hide the deadlines anywhere; they're right here. What we do with this is that we work on this in stages. So you have a certain number of tasks. So we've basically given you a test suite that you're responsible for passing within the next 2 weeks. This is, the first part of the MP is pretty, we understand that you're going to be spending a lot of time getting your development environment set up, just wrapping your mind around what's going on. And so there really isn't a huge amount to do. It's going to be, sorry, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot to do in sort of getting things set up, figuring out, how to get the project configured properly, reading through the existing code, but it's a lot of sort of just getting your feet moving, getting set up. There is not much code to write for this particular checkpoint. For the next couple checkpoints, we will ask you to do a bit more, mainly because we know that you're comfortable in the environment, you got your kind of head screwed on properly, and we'll ask you to write a little bit more code. Now, on the other hand, one of the things that you will be doing, and this is another thing that is a sort of a core software development competency, is mimicking and extending the code that we've already provided. And so, for example, if we look, pull up the MP here and look at one of the parts of the server class. So the server has a method right now that's responsible for returning the list of summaries for that semester. And this works great for the particular view that you guys are working on right now. On the next checkpoint, we're going to ask you to create a view that displays more specific information about a single course. At that point, you'll need to write the code in the server to provide that information. You also need to write the code in the client to receive that information, and then the code in the UI to display that information. The nice thing is, in all those cases, you can largely base your work around what's already here. So for example, once you understand this get summary method, you can write something pretty similar to deliver more specific information about a single course. The same thing with the client. Once you understand this get summary method on the client, you can write a similar method to return more detailed information about a single course. Same thing with main activity. Once you understand a little bit about how the main activity works and how it provides information to the display, you can write your own activity that's going to display specific information about a single course. And so, the code that you will write for the next checkpoint, not this one, is in many ways kind of variants on stuff. And then the third checkpoint will be similar, right? Every time we'll ask you to extend a little bit, but we're never going to ask you to do something that's like completely out of scope, right? Normally the code that you will be writing will look similar to the code that we've provided. So hopefully that will help sort of keep things under wraps in terms of difficulty. Let's see, error running great. I don't understand without seeing the error message. So this would be a good thing to post on the forum as far as what the error message is. And the install things should sort of that should be something that you can sort of sort out, right? One of the things about Android Studio is that there are many different ways that things can go wrong as you guys are getting started. The best thing to do, first thing, obviously, search on the forum to see if somebody has had a similar problem. The next thing is to look around on the internet, particularly if it's something like the Gradle SDK pieces. That might be a more common problem. The ID.text, I'm not exactly sure what the error message is that you're experiencing there, but that may be the result of not following some of the instructions, right? So before you can run the grade task, you do need to fill in. Oh, don't do that. You do need to insert your ID.text into this file. Until that's there, so if I go ahead and get rid of this, right, and now I try to run the grader. And again, I don't know exactly what error message you're getting, but this is going to take a minute to get going. I'm going to get... Yeah, Android Studio takes a few minutes. Yeah, I'm going to get this type of error. So if I don't know if this is the error that you're experiencing. If that's the error message, then it's caused by not having this information in that file. As soon as you have your ID, and again, please don't use mine. If you use the ID of another student, we will come after you, because that's how you identify yourself. So if you use somebody else's ID, you're essentially claiming to be them. Right, and that would not be something you want to do. So your ID you can find on the MP page, right around the place where we talk about how to set this up. Yeah, we'll take a look at, let's see here, yeah, and you know, when you guys are working through these errors, and again, I'm not exactly sure what the error message is about the SDKs. That's something that there is a, let's see here. If we go into, so one of the ways to address this is you go into the tools, Sdk Manager, and then this will allow you to, you know, get access to different, you know, SDK tools and things like this. So it looks like I have 29 installed, 28 is partially installed. So you can choose this, let's see, hit OK. And then it's going to download some stuff and unpack it. So these represent different versions of Android that you can use as part of the project. We are trying to remember exactly what version we're targeting, but over time, Android has added new features and new capabilities to newer versions of Android. And so as a result of this, what happens is that you know, so you can think about it like, you know, Android's a project that goes back quite a few years now. Early versions of Android devices, you know, had certain capabilities, and then as the version numbers march forward, you get new capabilities. Once in a while, they get rid of something. Usually, it's more likely that, you know, what's actually happening is that things are being added, and so then now I've got this other problem, so I have to commit my changes, which I can do. Let's see here. So let's author a commit message. I don't remember actually what I even did here. I think I must have. I can put anything I want in here. Commit. Yeah, that's probably okay. Now let's try running the grader again and see if it's happy with that. Okay, good. Yeah, so and we can look at this together since you asked. So this is, at some point we'll talk a little bit about what's in this file. When you design an Android project, you have this choice, right? You can say, give me fewer features, but that will mean that more phones will be available that support those features. You can also say, give me more features, but fewer phones. So if you're targeting like the latest version of Android, you may end up with some additional capabilities that you can make use of, but there won't be very many phones that will be running that version. Let's see here. Android version distribution. There's usually some, here we go. There is usually some, no, that's not what I want. Oh, looks like they took this down. That's too bad. Well, I wonder how old this is. This is April, so that's not too bad. Yeah, so let's look, right? Now we're less worried about this because, you know, we're you know, expecting you to use the emulator to run the app. But if you look here, this is the API level. That's what's actually in that configuration file. And if you go backwards, so this is at 29 is Android 10. So there's only about 8.2% of Android devices out there in the world that are actually running that version of Android as of April. If you go back to 28, the numbers go, so these numbers go up and up and up as you go back, right? because this is cumulative. So it's like any device running an API number this high or bigger, right? And so developers, when they develop an app, make a choice about this. Sometimes your app needs the latest, greatest features, right? Other times it doesn't. And in certain cases, like particularly if you're targeting distribution worldwide on users that might have the latest, greatest version of Android, so if you really want to guarantee that your app will run on 99.8% of devices, you actually have to set the API compatibility level all the way back to 16, right? And so at that point you lose a lot of features, but you gain the ability to run on older devices and older versions of Android. So this is not a concern for us because we're not worried about deploying this at scale. But if we were, at some point we might actually try to figure out, okay, can we drop that API level back a little bit to like 24 or maybe 24 I think is actually pretty good, or maybe down to 22 to get back to Lollipop. These numbers will look different in different parts of the world as well, right? If you ran these numbers for the United States, you'd see a little bit more of a distribution that's skewed towards newer versions of Android. But this also depends on, so one of the things that happens in Android that Google finds very frustrating is that not every phone maker will release new versions of Android. So Google will come out with the latest version of Android, and then a year or two later, some phone vendors still won't have shipped that version of Android. So their users will still be running older versions, which is not just a problem from the perspective of features, it's also a security problem because Android will fix security holes that people find in the system. But if your phone hasn't received that fix, then it's potentially still vulnerable. So anyway, this is this is sort of where these compatibility versions come into play. Let's see here. There's something I don't understand exactly why this is happening, but when you click on the Classroom link, if it creates a repository, you're done. You don't need to, you're not going to get invited to the CS125 Illinois organization. That's not going to happen. That part of the dialogue, I'm not exactly sure why it's happening, right? You should, at some point, it'll take you to the page. If you go through the video that I recorded on this, it'll take you to that page. You might have to refresh a few times, but at some point, it'll say it's done, and you'll be able to access the repository that was created. As soon as you get to that point, you're finished. You don't need to wait for an invitation to the organization. I'm not sure why that's a part of that dialogue, and if I knew how to turn it off, I would. If you can get access to your repository, then you're fine, right? So the idea is you create a repository in a place that we have access to, right? So I can browse your repositories, and we have tools that we use that we'll set up over the next few days to start automatically, when you guys submit code, grabbing the code, grading it officially, and then making those results available to you. So once you get to the point where you have a repository in that organization, you're done. Actually, let me go ahead, just for fun. I kind of want to see what this dialogue actually looks like. So this is what it looks like for me, because I can see everybody's repositories. I'm going to find, it has to be G-channel, I think. I'm going to find mine for fall 2020, which I created just 19 hours ago, and then I'm going to delete this guy. That will allow me to accept the invitation again. So I need to type, don't worry, this isn't your repository. Okay, so let's do this, hit confirm, okay. So I have removed my repo, that's totally okay. Now let's go back, I just want to see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to use this GitHub Classroom link. I'll try re-accepting. Yeah, so it says you may receive an email invitation. That's, you won't. And so if I re-accept this, then it's going to say, okay, accept this assignment. Now it says you may receive an email. You won't. And again, I don't know how to turn that off. Refresh this page to see updates, right? So that's what you have to do. As soon as you get to this point, and then you can get to this repository, you're finished. This is all that needs to happen. There is no email coming. I'll send out a clarification about this, but there's no email message that's coming with an invitation. Then that's fine, right? You get to this point, you're good to go. Yeah. And I'm sorry about that confusion. GitHub Classroom changes stuff every semester, so I'm always playing catch up to try to figure out exactly how a particular feature is going to work in a particular year. Yeah, so look, I just got to say, I've had 2 questions so far on the deadline. You guys have to read the documentation. If you don't read the documentation, trust me, you are sunk. And by reading the documentation, I also mean going through the screencasts, right? I'm not trying to give you guys a hard time, but the deadlines are like maybe 6 inches down the page. If you can't find that, then there's going to be a lot of other details that you're going to miss. The number one thing that I think is correlated with doing well on these MPs is reading. Reading the instructions, making sure you understand everything in there. So if you're having a hard time finding the deadline, I would encourage you to kind of revisit your approach to written information. There's also quite a bit of information in the screencasts that are provided as part of the MP. And so those are important to review as well. This is, on some levels, as I point out in one of the walkthroughs, this is sort of, you can think of it as almost like a guided tutorial, right? It's a tutorial that has some points associated with it to make sure that you guys are following along. Our goal here is we don't expect you to suddenly become, these amazing Android developers within, 6 weeks. So we're going to provide a lot of guidance and a lot of assistance, but you have to ingest it, right? I know it's a lot kind of all at once. You don't have to go through everything today, but there is a lot of guidance, a lot of instructions. And if you don't find, so the MP may say, do this thing. The MP write-up may say, do this thing, and it gives you some information about how to do that, or there might be hints about how to approach certain things that are in the videos. And if you guys miss those, then you're going to have a really hard time. So it's kind of like we've given you a lot of information to help you out, right, about how to approach this. But you do have to sit down and kind of read through things carefully. That's a given. All right, other questions. I thought APIs are only for HTTP, and what is the API referred to here? So I'm not exactly sure what the connection is with HTTPS. So an API is any interface across which information travels. So it's a place where 2 things come together, right? A web API, we're going to have some lessons as part of the class about this a little bit, particularly before you guys get on to the next part of the MP where we're going to expect you to write a little bit of this code. An API, a web API, is simply an interface where the communication takes place across the internet. And there are many different publicly available web APIs that can provide information. So one of them that we've used to gather the information that we've provided to you as part of the app. So for example, this is structured data. This is not JSON. It's in a format called XML. Let me blow this up a little bit. This is a web API that's provided by the University of Illinois. This has information about courses at the university. So for example, if I look here, let's do cs.xml. There we go, yeah. So this page, and you'll look at the structure of the URL here, right? It says, it's at this is the location of the website that's providing this information. And by asking for a specific path here, I'm requesting information about a specific department in a specific semester. So this gives me structured data, and there are programs that can interpret this for you with information about every course that's taught in the CS department. And this is actually the same information that we've provided to you in JSON format. It's just formatted differently, right? So this is in something called XML. And you can see that, I've got everything from CS 100 here all the way up to CS 598, these special topics courses. Every one of these links, these URLs, so let's look at CS 100. If I load that up in the browser, takes me to yet another piece of data. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a web API, I'm using it in the browser. Normally what you would do is you would write a program that uses this information. And one of the things we could have done, we decided not to, was write your app so that it communicated with this API. right? And there was a variety of different reasons for this. One of them was that it's XML, which I don't like very much. And also I thought it would be fun for you guys to be able to write the server yourself. So somebody at the University of Illinois is in charge of maintaining this server, right, that I'm communicating with at courses.illinois.edu that spits back this information. So this now takes me to a page about the course that has multiple pages about different sections of the class. And this page is finally like the most detailed piece of information we can get. So this is about one specific section of one specific class, right? And it has information about when it starts and ends. This is a full semester course. Where the meetings are. These are online meetings. When they start and end. Who's in charge of teaching them, etc. Right? This API is being served over HTTPS, but that's sort of irrelevant. It doesn't have to be. In fact, I think it's also available. Let's try. Is there an HTTP? There is an HTTP version, I think, but it's redirecting me. What we've done in the yeah, okay, so there was an error here. That's fine. That makes sense. So what we've done in the MP is you guys get to write the server. The server code is right here. If I don't have any idea how courses.illinois.edu is actually implemented, but it might look something like this. The idea is that I get a request. So let's look. Let's go back to that. And one of the pieces of information that I provide when I make a request to a web API is I provide this path. So the path is really everything that follows the host name. So a URL, we'll talk about this more in class later, URL has a couple of different parts to it. This is the host name. This identifies either a machine or a group of machines. And then there's this path. This path is just a string. And the server is allowed to interpret this path however it wants. In this case, you'll see that different components of the path are clearly identifying the year, 2020, the semester, fall, the course, CS, sorry, the department, CS, and then the course, 125. So the server is taking this path and interpreting it to mean, hey, somebody's requesting data about the course with number 125 in the department CS taught in semester fall in the year of 2020, and then it returns information appropriate for that request. If I give it like a bogus request, let's ask for a course that doesn't exist, now I get an error, right? And actually I'll show you in the code we're about to look at exactly where your server generates that type of error. So let's check it out. So this dispatch method is what's responsible for figuring out what to do with the path. So it uses it's passed this request, which represents a request to the server that someone is trying to make, and it's using the path to figure out what to do. The path is just a string, right? And so I can do all sorts of things with it. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm saying if the string starts with /summary, so again, they might say, if the string starts with /sysapp explorer schedule, then it's a request for information about the course schedule, and then I pass it off to another method to finish the job. That method further breaks down the path. So this is pretty normal. A lot of times the path contains different pieces of information. What I do, and this is code you guys should recognize. I mean, you've done things like this. It's just a string. I take the path, I split it. I expect to get two parts. I expect to get a year and a semester. The summary information should be for a single year and a single semester. The way that we had intended this was that this would return information about every course at the university. To make the test run more quickly and to just sort of aid your development, instead of giving you information about every course, I gave you only information about courses in CS. But that sort of doesn't matter. So it says, okay, if you gave me a path that's invalid, right, then I'm going to return this error code called bad request that indicates that you messed up. Otherwise, I'm going to try to look up information about this course, and we'll talk about the data structure that this is using in a couple weeks. This is called a map, right? This allows me to look up basically, this based on the semester and the year. If I don't find information for that semester and year, then I return this 404, right? That's just what I saw here. HTTP error 404. That means not found. That means the page doesn't exist. If I have the information, then I send it back. And so let's go ahead and let's make this, let's break this in a couple of ways just so we can have some fun with it. So the year and semester that are being used to make requests are 2020 and fall right now. And those correspond to data that we actually have available on the back end. But let's see what happens here. So let's go to the server and let's put some logging in here. We'll say log.a. We'll use the tag we have set up. No data for, we'll say for year plus summary. So the year is supposed to be the first part, and semester is supposed to be the second part of the URL. Parts 1. Okay. So we're going to log an error message there before we send back the error code that indicates something went wrong. So now I'm going to go to I'll close this. I'm going to go to my main activity and let's request information for spring. We don't have this information right now. So let me run the app. You're going to see what's going to happen. All right, so it built, I mean, there's no, we haven't created any problems with the app. The only problem is that, yeah, here we go. So you see, I've got to turn this on, I guess. So a couple things happen, right? I see no data for year, hold on, where's my log cat? And I want to look at, no, I don't want testing tag, I want error. And I see, where did it go? No data, here it is, right? So I could look for the server tag to narrow this down a bit more. Oh, don't do that. Yeah, okay, let's restart this so that we get, Android produces a lot of log messages. It's sort of overwhelming sometimes. So that's one of the reasons why it's really important to figure out how to use this view appropriately so that you can only see the ones that correspond to your app. If you start looking at everything that's spewed by Android, I mean, it's kind of amazing that Android runs at all, if you ask me, given how many problems seem to crop up as soon as we start to run things. Okay, so I'm reinstalling things. This always takes a minute to work out. The other thing you might have noticed is that the screen's blank when it starts up now. There are no courses displayed. And the reason is when that request fails, I don't get a callback, right, with information that's provided to the main activity. And so the list of courses is never updated. When the activity opens, the list of courses is empty, right? So if I look at the main activity, initially my list of courses is null. There's no information about this. And this is only changed by this callback, right, that I received when I make a successful request for courses. So right now what happened is the server got a request for 2020 spring. It doesn't have any data for 2020 spring. And so that request failed, the UI stays empty. And so if I go back and now if I fix this, let's see here. So let's make where's the main activity? I need to fix this. Okay. Where'd it go? There it is. The other thing that's important here is that the client and the server have to agree on what the requests look like. So this is an interface, remember, there's a contract here. It's a little bit of a different type of contract than we're used to thinking about, but there still has to be an agreement between the two. So the agreement right now is that the server says, when you ask for data, if you want a summary, if you want a list of summaries about courses, you need, for a particular semester, you need to ask by requesting the path /summary/year/semester. If you don't do that right, something bad's going to happen, right? So let's go look at the client now. Let's imagine that the client messes this up, and then we'll put like a colon here or something like that, right? Right now, you see where the request is being constructed. It's constructing this string from the URL of the server plus summary/year/semester. That's what it was doing before, and that was what the servers expected. If I change this, and now I change this to a colon, let's go look at the server code again. Now what we're going to see, well, let's just run it. I'll turn this off, and we'll turn this on to warn. Even info might be okay. Let's rerun it. So now the problem is the client is requesting data from the server in a way that the server is not prepared to expect. So you'll see that when I try to make this request, you'll see that I'm making the request for /summary/2020:fall. The server expects the year and the year and the semester to be separated by a slash. And so what happens is, if you look at the server code, I get this, what I'm doing here is I'm returning what's called a bad request. So when you think about how web APIs work, right? The return value from the server can have content. So when I make the request properly, I get back a string that contains all that JSON that describes all the different courses that are offered in the CS department for that semester. Could be the entire university, right? But I also get back another piece of information, which is I get a single int value. You can think of it that way. And the int values that are returned are in this list. So let's see here. You know what? This is not the best list for this. Is this a better list? Yeah, these are better. So normally, like when you go to a web page, you never see these successful responses. So when I just went to this website, I got back data for the page, but it also sent me back the status code 200, which means that everything's okay. Some people that have gone, like for example, if I go to like a weird page here, I'm gonna get this 404 thing, right? See, 404 not found. Where that comes from is that is the HTTP error code for not being able to find the resource. So essentially it says, you asked me for a page that I don't know how to provide. There's another request though, that's called bad request. So we can choose these request types depending on what happens. So essentially, when the server was unable to parse the URL because I used a colon instead of a slash, what I did is I sent back a different error code because I said, look, the request that you gave me does not meet the interface that you and I agreed to. You and I agreed that you would request things by saying summary/year/semester. I don't know where this colon came from. I don't know how to parse this, right? And this happens in our code when we split by a slash and we only have two parts. One thing to point out is that the path that's passed to this function has already had that /summary removed. So what I'm getting here is something that should look like year/semester. And so that's why I'm getting this back. So let's go fix this so I don't break anything. And now actually, if we go look at our server code, one of the things that we do before we return the data is we set the response code to this HTTP OK. That's 200. That's the code that this particular protocol passes back when the request has succeeded, right? And I've received the information that I was trying to get. So yeah, we're going to cover this stuff in class. We're going to talk a little bit about web interfaces, mainly because it's cool, but also these are super powerful, right? I mean, I just showed you one, right? There's all sorts of information out there online that you can get access to. So if you wanted to, and maybe after this semester you'll be inspired and you'll want to continue to work on this app, all this information is available through the university, right? So if you could build an app based on top of this public API that the university already provides. I built some tools based on that to download the data that we provided to you. Let's see here. I'm going to see if they have the 2021 data up yet. Nope. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm sure this will be up before registration starts, right? So currently they don't have any, doesn't look like they have any 2021 information up. But they do have, I think, a certain degree. Let's see here. So this works. How far back can we go? How about 2000? Okay, so that's too old. How about 2010? That's there. Okay, that's cool. Let's see, who was teaching this in 2010? Man, look at how small it was. Yeah, there were only like 8 lab sections. This was Lawrence. Yeah, 2010. Lawrence Ongrave taught this class. What about 2008? Well, let's go to 2005. Oh, wow, look at that. Still really small. At that point, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 labs. This is back before computer science was cool again, I guess. And oh yeah, so this was Jason Zich. Hey, you can sort of go back, you can do some time traveling here, find the old instructors for the course. How back to, yeah, so let's see how far back this goes. So 2001 was too far. 2000 was too far. 2001 is too far. At some point, I think they put up this API, and I don't know, let's see here. 2003 is too far. Looks like 2004 looks like the first. And you can actually, I think you can figure out what semesters are available by going to, oh, there we go, yeah. So this will give me, okay, so it looks like 2004, this gives you all the calendar years that are available. I don't know why, let's look at 2001, because it does look like it's claiming there's information here, and now it's claiming there's information here. It's weird. I didn't think that this was up yet. Okay, that's working. Yeah, so they just haven't, have they posted the winter calendar yet? I'm assuming so. Anyway, this is just one of many different sources of public information that's exposed. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, you know, we could figure out. Now, this is obviously not the right way to access this information. They have this nice interface called Course Explorer that like doesn't do search properly and has all sorts of other irritating features. But the raw data is there. And so one of the reasons that we talk about web APIs, and you guys will actually get a chance to build one as part of this app, is because by using them, you can access all sorts of cool data, right? So there's web APIs, a lot of, let's see here. I think the Chicago Transit Association has some APIs that allow you to, you know, get information. I know that the local Champaign Bus API. Here we go. Yeah, so the local MTD, and actually one of our former course heads, Ben Nordic, actually, who did some work on this and actually built an app. I think it started off as a CS125 project, and then he ended up continuing to work on it, that used this information. So this, our local transit authority provides a way for you to retrieve through its API data about bus routes, like, you know, different, where the stops are and things like that. Let's check this out. So this is, and so here's the format. So this is an interface, right? So we have to agree on what the format of things are. Here's the format of the request. Here's a sample response. This is in JSON. I guess you can request either JSON or XML here. This is data, right, that you get back. And you'd have to spend some time, and I know that Ben did this when he designed his app, trying to like figuring out what information is available and what format can you get it in and stuff like that. But there's an increasing amount of data in the world that's made available over the web using the idea of a web API. And so simplest form of this that you guys are working with right now, I make a particular type of request across the internet. I have to set up the path properly, and there's potentially other things I have to establish about the request, and I get data back. And then I get a string, you know, that's either it might be JSON, might be XML, which is another data serialization format. And then I can take that and I can deserialize it using a tool like Jackson, which we've done some work with in the past. And now what I have is data, right? I'd have like a list of course objects, and I can at that point do all sorts of fun things with them, like allow you to search them or display them in certain ways, right? And so, you know, in this particular app, you guys have access to both the client and the server, and I think that's going to give you a more holistic view about how this works and what's going on. All right. Other questions about, yeah, I mean, if you're installing Android Studio and you've had a previous version, that's up to you, right? Android Studio has some global settings that you can set, and you can set those settings, you can set that up depending on, you know, so I think if you install for the first time from scratch, you probably don't get that option, or there's no way to import from a previous version. But if you've had a previous version and you've set up some things about it that you like, then maybe you want to keep them. So that's really up to you. Other questions before we break up for the day? So yeah, I mean, you know, this is kind of a really exciting moment for me every semester in CS125, because I really love to introduce students to this idea of actually being able to build real things. Homework problems are fun. They're a great way to build competency. It's just not the same thing, right? You're not going to change the world by doing the CS 125 formal problems. It just isn't big enough. They're not real enough, right? They're great practice, right? I think, I tried to provide a couple of analogies on the MP page, but I think there's lots of different points of connection here between the transition we're making and other types of transitions that you make in other areas, right? So I grew up playing the cello, and I still remember, every week my teacher would assign me like these etudes. I still probably have some of those exercise books. In fact, I think I can still see the covers of some of them. They were, would live in my nightmares forever. And etudes are not, beautiful pieces to play. They're just like things to train your fingers to work a particular way or stress one particular movement that your fingers need to make or whatever. But you do them. And this is sort of like if you're in a sport like doing drills, right? I mean, if you guys have played soccer, you do all these cone drills, right? Just dribbling through a cone. I mean, is that as exciting as playing a game? No, but it builds some core competencies that you then can apply later on when you actually start to scrimmage or start to play for real. So that's kind of the stage that we're at, right? We've built you up with these small problems to the point where you understand some things, and now we're going to put that to work in a more real setting. And also, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind with the MP is that we really do, we really are conscious, and we're trying very much to make sure that this is a great experience for everybody and that you understand what you're doing. There's a fine line here between, I think sometimes in the past we've asked students to do too much too soon, and they get overwhelmed, and what they tend to do is just spend hours and hours waiting for a course assistant to help them and give them the answer, and it's just not a good way to learn. That's not a good way for you guys to feel empowered and like you understand what's going on. So we really have set this up to try to it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, and that's what happens when you're learning something new, but at the same time it's also intended to be fun, and it's intended to be a model for how to do something like this. So the types of concepts that we're exposing you to here and the types of patterns that you get into are things that, you could take this app when we're done, and with a little bit of extra work, you could actually deploy this. You could publish the app on the App Store. You could take the server and you could kind of take it out of the app and set it up separately so that it ran on its own, and you could run that in the cloud somewhere, maybe on Amazon Web Services, which you guys have some free credits on, and then it would be real, right? I mean, that would be a real thing. Like your friends could install it, your parents could install it. That's kind of our goal with this part of the class. So I hope that you guys do enjoy it and have fun. There's always some wrinkles and headaches and struggles getting any piece of software set up. Android Studio is no exception, but we'll help you through that. So check one more time for any last questions. Okay, I think we're good. Good luck getting started. Please, jump on the help site, ask on the forum if you guys need help. Otherwise, I wish you guys the best of luck on the MP. And I'll be back tomorrow when we'll pick up with our daily lessons, and we'll talk about some new course content.